In the waning light of a blood-red sunset, as the engines of war roared through the heavens, there came a whisper, a rumor so strange, so unsettling, that it clung to the hearts of those who dared to defy gravity. It was said that in the highest reaches of the sky, where the air thinned and the stars glimmered like cold, distant eyes, something else watched, something born of shadow and mischief. They called them Gremlins. It began innocuously enough, with murmurs exchanged in the mess halls of British airfields during the twilight of World War I. Pilots, their faces pale and drawn from endless hours in the air, spoke of fleeting visions, dark, twisted shapes clinging to the wings of their aircraft, grinning with malevolent glee as they danced along the fuselage. The stories were dismissed at first, laughed off as the hallucinations of men driven to the brink by exhaustion and fear. But the laughter died quickly, replaced by an uneasy silence. For the malfunctions that plagued their planes were no laughing matter. Instruments that had been checked and rechecked suddenly went haywire, engines sputtered and choked as though gripped by an unseen hand, and wings that should have cut cleanly through the air shuddered as if they were being torn apart by invisible claws. It was then that the whispers began in earnest, whispers of the Gremlins. As the war raged on, so too did the legend of the Gremlins grow. They were no longer mere hallucinations, but creatures of flesh and bone, small, twisted beings with jagged teeth and eyes that glowed with a sickly light. They were said to be born of the wind and the cold, living in the hidden places of the aircraft, where no human hand could reach, and when the time was right, they would strike. In the dead of night, as a pilot strained to keep his plane aloft, a gremlin might crawl out from the engine, its spindly fingers reaching for wires and cables, tearing at the lifeblood of the aircraft with a malicious glee. The pilot, already on edge, would see them only in fleeting glimpses, a flash of movement in the corner of his eye, a shadow that should not be there. And in those moments, as panic set in and the controls went dead, he knew that his fate was no longer in his hands. The Gremlins had come. The fear of Gremlins began to take on a life of its own. Pilots, already under the immense pressure of combat, began to dread the very thought of flying. They would check and double-check their planes before takeoff, knowing that it made no difference. If the Gremlins wanted to strike, they would. One such pilot was a young man by the name of Roald Dahl, whose time in the Royal Air Force would haunt him for the rest of his life. He heard the stories from his fellow airmen, tales of planes that plummeted from the sky for no reason, of engines that burst into flames without warning, of men who had seen the Gremlins and lived to tell the tale. But Dahl did not laugh. He knew better. In the cold, unfeeling light of dawn, Dahl penned a story, a warning to those who would dare to ignore the unseen forces that ruled the skies. He called it the Gremlins, and it was filled with the dread and terror that he had come to know so well. It was a story of creatures that lived to sow chaos, to feed on fear, and to drag men to their doom. As the years passed and the world moved on from the horrors of war, the legend of the Gremlins refused to die. It twisted and morphed, like the creatures themselves, taking on new forms in the minds of those who heard the tales. But at its heart, the story remained the same, a warning of the darkness that lurks just beyond the edge of human understanding. Even in the modern age, with all its technology and sophistication, the Gremlins remain a part of the pilot's world. In the dead of night, when a plane inexplicably falters, when the instruments spin wildly and the engine roars with a mind of its own, a cold sweat breaks out on the pilot's brow. He glances at his co-pilot, and in the darkness they both understand. There is no need for words. They know what has come for them. Gremlins, one might whisper, his voice trembling. And in that moment, they are no longer in control. The skies belong to the Gremlins now, and all they can do is pray that they will be spared. The legend of the Gremlins is not just a story. It is a reminder, a grim, unsettling reminder that even in the age of science and reason, there are forces beyond our control, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. And when they do, when the Gremlins come, all that remains is the terror of the unknown, the cold realization that there are some things in this world that cannot be explained, only endured. So, the next time you find yourself at 30,000 feet, in the dead of night, remember the Gremlins, for they remember you.